Well, good morning, Facebook land. So, I'm seeing now the whole positive and negative, why the Freemasons have the black and white checkerboard. Because it is a duality balance of life and death. Though you don't have to die, there are things of an old world that must die off. What humans have not figured out is they don't have to pass away when there's new simulations coming in. And with 7.9 billion people, new simulations can be something as little as a cold or a flu. And not everybody survives a cold or a flu. And so the life and the death process is all relative to how much you have been exposed to the old world, and the old world is cannibalizing you. And so then when a new world tries to come in and upgrade you, and it has antibiotic qualities, and then you as a human is supposed to bring in pro-life qualities, probiotic qualities, and there must be a balance and there must be an alignment with all the viruses, okay? And so innovation is about developing aggressive viruses to force a person to sharpen their own strength, to sharpen their own sword, I guess is the only way I can think about it, or how to say about what the benefits of a viruses are and what the downfalls or the downsides of viruses. And so it's such a trip because, yesterday I was just like, yeah, you've been programmed. Okay, yeah, you have been programmed. The viruses do come from the elements, the antibiotics, and then the person's information gets transferred through the body defending itself against that antibiotic. Okay? So if you were to take a bunch of prototypical humans that have, like just a human that hasn't been edified by anything, it's just been given food and it has a prototype and all that, and then you expose it to new viruses that have programming in it, they're going to have to feel that energy. Like I have that energy on the back of my shoulder, but it doesn't itch. I just noticed that this morning, but I felt the heat last night. And so what came from a human is their programming based upon their reaction to an antibiotic. Now their programming is either going to upgrade somebody or downgrade someone. Like I said, you have a choice. When you take on information from somebody else released because of the antibiotics and all the different therapies and using food as medicine and all that, and I don't even know if I could say like you shouldn't do that or should not do that, because that's how innovation goes viral. That's how information goes viral, is when someone's defense system is releasing the microbes. Now, you have all the different therapies to try to block it. I mean, yeah, you could do that. That's what the therapies market is for. That's what the cures market is for, is to delay the evolution. But what happens is when you stay cured and you stay in a very specific homogenized world, which has been the world that people live in within the lifespans, you don't survive the aggressive new evolution relative to your predispositions. And that's not something you can tell someone like universally, well, the old world, new world. They're like, well, I survived this new world, that cold and flu, but how come that person didn't survive? Or maybe they didn't. Maybe they didn't die from the cold and flu. They died from this and that. And so we have all these perceptions of why people die. But the reality is that when people are born into this world, they either had so many predispositions working against them that when they come into this world, most of their life has already been eaten up, because for our society has this perception that you shouldn't feel pain. And any kind of pain you feel, it needs to be suppressed, needs to be taken out, surgically done this, it needs to be blocked and neutralized and destroyed. And so when you come into this world at a major deficit, and it could be, you don't have hearing or you're born blind, then, and to actually get it back, to earn back your sight and your hearing and all that, you would have to go through a lot of pain to do that. But that's not our society's way. Our society is about peace and tranquility and equilibrium and innovation, and how many cures can we give to you to give you the gifts that you're looking for, like sight and hearing and the ability to keep going to your job and making all this money. And so that's what our society has been predicated upon. And it advances itself when the system wants to advance you. And that's where I'm just like, okay, because how do you evolve 7.9 billion people? Well, they're all under a very specific programming that kind of rises and falls with each new variant of some virus based upon all the antibiotics, all the innovation. Because antibiotics can be also innovation. And that's how I have to look at antibiotics. Something that's anti-life doesn't have to destroy you, because obviously people take antibiotics, they're not dead, but how they respond to what's going on in their body. Why are they taking antibiotics? Why are they destroying their life? Well, because they don't want to feel pain. Well, when someone doesn't want to feel pain and they're taking something that destroys them, and it then translates onto you, now you have the option to take on that programming and have it commandeer your system, or when you feel a symptom, you respond to it differently. And so antibiotics is truly, it's a personal thing, but people don't understand that antibiotics can also translate into the population and go viral. And so if you don't understand that antibiotics is the viruses that hold the programming that's being released by a person, because you have to release the T cells and the B cells. Those are your natural killer T cells and the B cell memories that will regulate the T cells or express or suppress. And so you're always going to be releasing those. And when someone does take antibiotics, it has a programming that is programmed against or for something in the environment. And then your body must have a choice to be able to take on that program if it's beneficial, or release it. But you have to understand what symptoms are. So when I woke up this morning after last night's head heat, and I was actually feeling hot yesterday, I was tossing and turning, going like, what the hell? Why am I feeling so hot? And it wasn't like super hot flash. I was just feeling hot all over. I was like, Jesus, is the heat? Is it that cold outside? Did the heat so up? And it seemed so out of character for the last couple of weeks. And I woke up and I took a shower and got rid of a bunch of stuff. And I saw in the back when I was drying myself off, there was like these little hives that looked like the ones that I showed you guys yesterday that was on my chest a couple months ago. And so the thing about hives is it could be something that's laying dormant within you, and it's an aspect of the AIDS virus. Absolutely. AIDS has been around since 1981 and before, most likely. It's already circulated in the population. It rears its ugly head every so often in different places, but people hold that programming within. Well, why do some people get the AIDS virus, and how would they know? Well, you have to test for it. If you don't test for it, then you don't know you have it, but you do have it. But it comes out in symptoms that people are like, oh, I have hives or I have this. But so the thing is that if you have it, and it's intermingling with other things in the body that also cause other predispositions and other symptoms that may happen. And so you may not even think it's like, anything related to AIDS, but right now, so many people are under different layers, so many layers and layers and layers of programming, of antibiotics, of different innovation from the times that they were exposed to different people, whether it's sexually or whether you are in a crowd of people and everyone's blowing out their mucus on everybody. And so it's hard to determine where you pick stuff up. I'm adopted, so whatever my parents may have had, I took on because we share in DNA because of the drinking from same glasses, sharing stuff, sharing bathrooms, sharing sinks. Okay, and then when I go out there with kids when I was a younger child, picking up stuff, and you go out there as a young adult, you're having sex here and there and going to parties and going into hot tubs full of people who are drunk, you're picking up DNA all the time. And so then you're not going to realize, you're not going to know for sure, even when you're at this point where I'm at, where I'm pretty much reversed all my issues. But when I go out there, when I go out there or something comes into my world, is what is coming to surface, like something like that, that's observable, like a hive. Did I have that as a predisposition, or was that a new variant that somehow passed through my first lines of defense and was able to be expressed through my skin? Well, I'm thinking it's a predisposition because this should be pretty, I don't know, strong, but that's why you have a second lines. And you never know when you eat stuff. Well, even if you eat stuff, if you're feeling mucusy, but stuff does come through. So it's so hard to know exactly what you're still holding inside or what you may have picked up along your way, even after you reverse all your issues and you get to a certain point. And so you always have to let it express. Because if you're using a cure, if I were to go, oh my God, like it doesn't even itch. I barely even know it's there. The only reason I know it's there is I saw it in the mirror when it's sunny inside my bathroom and I could see it through the droplets of water. And so if you start putting medicine and stuff on your body, using cures, using steroids, antibiotics, then, like I said, you're pushing that stuff back in and you're not letting it express, and it will express somewhere else in the body. And so that's the thing, is that what did I write with it? When you allow things to express, yeah, you're going to be communicable. That's why you stay home, because you will be communicable. But then it's up to the other person to take care of themselves, to have some kind of defense system so they can handle being around a crowd of people and whatever it is they're bringing to the table, literally. And everyone is responsible for their own personal protection. Okay? So viruses are intelligent because man is intelligent. Man knows how to program people with alphanumeric codes and with different acids and gases and matter and electrical impulses. And so, and then there's specific genotypes and specific phenotypes, and we have so many different samples out there in the population. There has been countless human experiments. There's been different simulations, even, in antiquity. We had the giants. The giants, I'm sure, had antibiotics and things that they used against their own body that then caused them to release their DNA, and also them decomposing. There's DNA all over this earth from antiquity and from the tomb. So when you go into a tomb and there's all the viruses from all the different alchemy and the DNA from the mummies and the kings, that also can be brought into this population, of which why you see people that look like King Tut or someone from the past. You saw what Obama and his wife look like. They did a picture of what the king and the queen of Egypt may have looked like, and it was like Obama and Michelle Obama. You're like, well, I wouldn't doubt that man and scientists have taken aspects of the DNA from antiquity, from the mummies, from different things, and have injected it into the population in some way, to possibly put it into a protein, developed some kind of virus. Okay, and then that gets released somewhere, people take it on, and some of the programming may have more of a binding effect to specific cultures that hold specific algorithms that have an easier docking mechanism. So then you might see, obviously, doppelgangers from antiquity, or even just people in the population look relatively the same. Like, you see people that look like they are the same. And you're like, dude, that's why there's so much redundancy in the population. That's what's right now being cut down. So I have to really wrap my around. I have to be able to not demonize antibiotics so much, but I had to really look at it so people understand there is an upside. There is an upside to antibiotics, and there is a downside to antibiotics. How you react to the antibiotics that are out there. Because you may not take an antibiotic, but somebody else will. They'll be releasing their DNA and their programming, of which then you'll have to upgrade to. And so And so then we can't even demonize anything. We have to understand how to respond to all the changes in the environment. And so, and that's the thing, is that, you know, can a pot smoker eventually get themselves off of pot and finally deal with their issues? Absolutely, if they're willing to face it. Because you've been on so many different antibiotics and trying to manipulate your own hormones with so many different drugs and so many different, you know, drugs, yeah, and antibiotics, because you've polluted your body in such a way, doesn't mean that you don't have the opportunity to release all that. That you could start from square one without dying. And so like any decomposing energy, it gets scattered into the wind. So when you're dead, so when you die, people are like, oh no, you just go move on to, like, you know, Andromeda or something. No, your body decomposes and it gets scattered into the wind and eaten by a bunch of worms and stuff. Then your spirit gets scattered into the wind. Maybe there's enough residual energy for you to knock around different places. Maybe people around you are keeping your memory alive, and so that's how you're able to kind of materialize, I guess. But you're not physically here on this earth, and you don't know what it's like to be dead. Nobody knows what it's like to be dead. People speculate all the time. People speculate all the time what it's like to be dead, but they don't know what it's like to be dead. So I would rather know the devil I know, literally or figuratively, which is this world, versus the devil I don't. And if I have to go through suffering, which is not a horrible thing at this juncture, but if I have to go through suffering to get to whatever new simulation that we're entering into, then that's fine. I will go through it. I will snark out stuff. I'll sound like I'm sick, according to some people. I'll do whatever I have to do to get the poop out. I will eat whatever I have to eat. I will stay home more than not because I know how aggressive it is out there. That's fine. Life has to change a little bit. And then I will also edify myself. And in turn, when I edify myself, I edify those around me that are willing to take on the information and apply it if that is appropriate. So I'm now giving people the opportunity to see why they don't have to succumb to the antibiotics and the cures. So life and evolution comes from death, which is why antibiotics are used, because it forces a person to fight for their life or succumb to death. That's the Hunger Games. Okay? So I'm now giving people the opportunity to see they don't have to succumb to the antibiotics and the cures, but if they partake in the cures market and they abuse it, which people have done, they don't live long enough to pull themselves out and evolve to the new simulation. And so that's the thing is that you hold a lot of different antibiotics within you. Absolutely, you hold so much different programming that's conflicting, and you have to realign that, which means you have to release a bunch of stuff. And then also you're exposed to those who are using antibiotics that are also commandeering their immune system based upon their personal protection and personal situations and whatever. And you are still taking that on. And so now at this point, you're going to have to figure out, you want to keep compounding the cures and keep compounding all the antibiotics that are going to work against you and keep causing your body to defend itself. Like I said, with the whole primary and secondary antibodies, there are some intentions with antibodies, and then your body also does want to defend itself too and build a defense around that. So you want to keep creating the wars inside, which then you see there's wars out there, or you want to finally pull yourself out of the public who have to be cured. And when you're cured, you are holding the war inside, and then it gets projected out there. Okay? And so that's going to be a careful balance for those that are trying to transition themselves out of the public because of the war inside. And so then this is where I can now finally say I'm unbiased. I am completely unbiased because I just saw the benefit of antibiotics. I don't have any issue with the vaccines. I don't have any issue with any of the therapeutics out there because they all have a specific purpose for people personally, but which I can't legislate morals. If someone wants to get a transplant and they're taking cyclosporin, well, okay, but now you have to understand why there's these viruses in the population. Is it a bad thing? Is it a good thing? It's our simulation. It's what we have adopted, we have accepted as far as the medical system. That they go and do the nips and tucks and find all the innovation to put you together piece by piece with nanotechnology, with machinery, with all these different things, with animal parts or other people's parts. And you've accepted it. You said you wanted that because you wanted whatever, and you didn't know any better. Now you're going to know better. You still have a choice. But I can't get mad at any of that. And that's why I had to get all of my anger and all my, and blaming and whatever on Facebook, because it needs to be put out there. People take it on and deal with it. Doesn't mean that they have to stay stuck in that world and get even more on the bandwagon of how the antibiotics market is destroying population. But everyone has to go through the layers and layers and layers and layers of program, and they have to wrestle with this notion. You have to go through the process. You have to go through your fear, your upset, your anxiety, your depression over all the different things, and then find the silver lining in it all. Because if someone didn't take an antibiotic, then I wouldn't get their information. That's how you force information out of people. You give them an antibiotic, and whatever, and then they're like, okay, they have to upgrade to it, and then it gets released, and now I'm taking on information. That's how I've been able to get extremely smart and pick up on things, because it's how I respond to the information that's being given to me, and it's also the information. And so the more, and me going to different countries and different states, me putting myself in crazy situations like across the U.S., driving by myself, meeting a dude that I didn't really know from the internet and married him and made something. I mean, yeah, I risked my life a little bit, but I mean, luckily I had a little bit of sense. I kind of can tell, and I could have left at any time if I wanted to. But I took on all this information, and you've seen some of the travels and some of the things that I've been involved with people and with in-laws and all that crazy energy. And it was because it was taking on the information, and they're taking on my information, and we're all just going through a chaotic evolution. And sometimes you die from evolution if you don't get out of it, and sometimes the evolution will make you stronger. And so that's part of taking on information. But that comes from taking something that is so diverse, and that could be antibiotic. What do you mean by antibiotic? In that sense, it's like you're upsetting now the old life. Everyone was all like happy, peaceful, doing their thing. But were they really happy and peaceful? Not necessarily. But maybe they needed something new in their life, and they didn't know it. Or maybe they didn't want it. Who cares? But something came in and upset the homeostasis. You don't have to die from an upset of homeostasis, but people choose to because they don't want to change. So when I come into a world that's very homogenized and people don't want to change, and here I am going like, I'm from California, I'm the best, I'm this and I'm that, and I'm sure I was like that. And they're just like, ooh, who is this chick? Who is this taking away our brother from this? And you know how people are in families sometimes. They're very protective and territorial, which I get. And so, and if I were to stay in some of the homes that I was in, since I was so different, my energy and them reacting to it because I'm just so different, or they had other issues that were going on, they could have been destroyed by it. They didn't have to be. And maybe it sharpened their own swords, but then it'd be like a fight to the death, and we don't want that. So someone's got to leave, okay? And so that's what evolution is. You figure out how much you can take of someone changing your world. But you still, now you have that information. What you do with it is completely up to you. You can go and destroy it with your own antibiotics and try to forget about it and still live your life and not change and not take on this new information, or you take on the new information and you advance yourself, because whoever is different that's coming into your world is bringing you information that you could use to your benefit. Not everybody sees it that way. Then they look at me as antibiotic because I am destroying their way of life. They have new information that they weren't ready to deal with or want to handle or want to even accept. And so anyone that's evolutionary can also be antibiotic relative to how do people respond to it. And that is very difficult to understand right off the bat, because antibiotic is like anti-life. But what is life? Life is someone's their lifestyle, their belief system, how they do things, their economy, their family. And so when someone says, okay, well, it's now going to change, the government is antibiotic to people who don't want to change with the government. That's why you see all the activists out there. They don't like the government because the government to them is antibiotic, because the government is changing their way of life, changing the things that they're used to seeing, and now it's not the same anymore. And so, holy crap, that's another fucking revelation. Okay, so anything out there, I mean, I have to be careful how much, like now you're like, oh, should I go out there in public now with no mask? How much evolution do I want to take on, people? Even though some of it's laced with antibiotics, it's also laced with intelligence. Because remember, the antibiotics is what brought up the intelligence. Because people are releasing. Because you have too much antibiotic in your body, it'll kill you, right? So you have to release the excess antibiotics. You have to release the excess T cells and B cells. Those are the innovation. That's the innovation. And Jesus, wow. And so that's why antibiotics are not necessarily bad. That's why viruses are not necessarily bad. Yes, they come from antibiotics, but also the viruses are laced with the programming. And even though the catalyst was antibiotic, it caused a reaction. It caused a chemical reaction, a big bang. When you're sneezing, when you're coughing, when you're throwing up, when you're doing waterfalls, when you are having sex, you are releasing not only the programming, but whatever energetic catalyst that also caused the release of the information. The Pandora's box. Everyone is a Pandora's box. It's a collective Pandora's box, but it doesn't have to be bad. You just have to know how to respond to it. So that's why I have taken a little bit hiatus in writing, because I have to know 100% I am unbiased. And the last couple of days I have been harping on the drug industry. Absolutely. Because you see how many allergies out there. And what are you going to, but people have to know where these allergies come from. They have to know where all these viruses come from. It's not just the antibiotics or the drugs. It's also people's information that has forced people to deal with evolving. And some don't want to. Some resist the change. And they'll take more antibiotics. And they'll take more cures until there's nothing left. Or on the other side of it, someone like me who will be exposed to everything under the sun will take on that information and will have to deal with hives and rashes, and if it's still within me, or if it does penetrate my first lines and it has to come out through my second lines and through my skin, okay. But I won't take a cure for it. I won't keep suppressing it and pushing it back into my body. I will let it go out there in the universe, and when I feel like sick or something, I stay home, which I have been anyways, because understanding this is going to force you to stay home more than not. So then by just that notion of that I stay home because I, don't want to pass this around, you won't take on so much evolution either. You will get it in the wind. You will get it from the few people that you hang out with, if you do. And that's the gradual evolution with someone who's balanced will be able to take on, even though those around them are not getting it and they are dying from all the cures out there because they want to still keep with their life. That's not your problem. You can't save someone else. You can't defend someone else. You can't do anything for other people. You can only save yourself and defend yourself. That right there, that is the book. Because I already saw myself going into the medical holistic system is destroying people. No, they're also evolving those that understand how to deal with the medical holistic system. But they're also giving you a chance to destroy yourself willingly. but they're also giving you an opportunity to be completely edified by 7.9 billion pieces of intelligence. And that's how you have to look at it. That's how I'm looking at it, because it's not a coincidence that I'm getting all this at a faster rate. It's not like I've done anything different except deal with the symptoms and deal with these viruses, release the demons through my sphincter, through blowing my nose, through just handling my life without turning to the medical system. All right, Guy, I gotta go. Bye.